You're watching Arise, the world's standout news channel.
This was indeed a very insightful and profound experience for me. From Ethiopia, we flew back to Cairo, and of course, we flew back with George Elombi himself, and that was my maiden flight to Cairo, sometime right after COVID, I think late 2020. This turned out to be a matchmaking event between myself and the man who has successfully established SAPZs across Africa, the man called Gagan Gupta, the CEO and founder of Arise, who just shared his testimony with us earlier on in the session. This was how we birthed Nigeria's reference special agro-processing zone called the Industrial Platform, REMO. We also call it our Aerotropolis because it now hosts the best state airport in Nigeria and also has the biggest textile processing plant in the world, of course, facilitated by Oramah and Afreximbank, also in the making. This is a $2.5 billion investment that will employ 250,000 people working there every day, producing 1,000 tons of cotton a day. Professor Oramah, thank you. Thanks to you, today, Ogun State's GDP stands at about 17 trillion, about $11 billion. 5 years afterwards, that our economy has increased fivefold. We are the fastest growing subnational government in Nigeria today. It turned me into a superstar. Prof, you have impacted the continent like no other. You have impacted Nigeria like no other. From PAPS, AFCTA, to intra-Africa trade, the Naira for crude that has helped, amongst other President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's reforms, led to the stabilization of the Naira. And of course, the African Medical Center of Excellence, which has been referenced so many times in Abuja, and the International Trade Center. I've listened to all the testimonies and accolades, particularly that of George, your successor, which was quite emotional. These are indeed indelible legacies ingrained on the marble of time. You are and remain an illustrious son of Nigeria that we're indeed very proud of and pleased with. The narrative of your life is truly an inspiring one for all and the upcoming generation. I'm here on behalf of the entire good people and government of Ogun State, and also the governors of the Nigerian Governors Forum. Congratulate you for finishing strong and finishing well. I want to take our time to appreciate Oramah'S boss and Oramah'S president, his wife Chinelu, for keeping him grounded. Look at the attendance today. Men and women of substance have come from all over the world to celebrate you. This is what impact looks like. Prof, we appreciate you. We are proud of you. God bless you as you move on sabbatical. Definitely the last is not heard of you. And to George, President-designate, congratulations. No doubt you are well equipped with all you need, and we have no doubt you will build on and take the bank to loftier heights. And I want to quote what I heard earlier today. If it is possible, it will be done. If it is impossible, it can be done. God bless Afreximbank. God bless Egypt. God bless Nigeria. God bless Africa. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Governor. Prof, one of the things that you've done is your friendships have spread far and wide beyond even the business world. I noticed in the corner there, did you know that Afreximbank, when it was first established, $1 million, the first $1 million came from the United Nations Development Fund. And actually from New York, I spy over there, I just want her to be acknowledged. If you could please stand, I see Ahuna Eziakonwa, the head of Africa, all the way from New York City, from UNDP. Please stand and be acknowledged. Ladies and gentlemen, strong supporter and friend of not just Professor Oramah and Afreximbank, UNDP and Afreximbank. Now, as we move on, Prof, we talked about you building bridges with the Caribbean. So let's move on to the Caribbean. Now, His Excellency Deacon Mitchell is hereby represented, that he is the Prime Minister of Grenada and a strong supporter and friend to Afreximbank and Africa. We're going to hear a few words now. I'd like to invite to the stage, representing His Excellency Deacon Mitchell, His Excellency Ambassador Richard Allen Nixon. He is the Senior Resident Ambassador, Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Grenada, ladies and gentlemen. Please give him a round of applause as he takes the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, good night. Standing on the protocols already established, and I will keep my remarks very short. And these words are from Prime Minister the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, your very good friend, Professor, and he apologizes for not being here today because of some pressing matters back at Capitol. So, ladies and gentlemen, his message is as follows. In July, during the African Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2025 held in Grenada, we honored President Oramah in a manner befitting his vibrant legacy and a profound appreciation by planting a flamboyant tree whose origins are from Madagascar at Camahon Park, a national park shared by all Grenadians and in proximity to a National Heroes Park. This tree, known for its brilliant red blossoms and resilience, the flamboyant tree now stands as a living tribute and enduring impact you have had on Grenada. It now stands as a legacy of his enduring contributions to African-Caribbean relations and reminder of the roots he has planted to deepen and strengthen us for future generations. This tree symbolizes the fiery passion which Professor Oramah pursued, unity between Africa and the Caribbean, and the shade of opportunity he has helped create for generations to come. As it grows, so too will the bonds he helped forge, rooted in shared history, nourished by mutual respect, and blossoming with promise. And so, it is with deep respect and admiration that I stand with all of you in joining to honor a man whose vision, leadership, and unwavering commitment have left an indelible mark on the African continent and its diaspora. Professor Oramah's tenure at the helm of Afreximbank has nothing been short of transformational. Under his leadership, the bank managed to rise even above through the commodity risks, COVID-19 pandemic, and other geographical disruptions. Yet, beyond all this, his legacy has inspired leaders across the Caribbean and redefined what it means to be a part of global Africa. Professor Oramah understood that Africa's strength lies not only within its borders, but also in its people, who by divine intervention are strategically scattered across the globe. He championed and gave birth to the concept of global Africa, forging new pathways and cooperation between Africa and the Caribbean. His efforts led to the historic inclusion of 12 CARICOM states as partner members of Afreximbank, with more poised to join. Professor Oramah's impact has not only been continental, it has been global. His work has inspired Caribbean leaders to reimagine our place in the global economy, to see ourselves not as isolated islands, but as an integral part in a united and prosperous global Africa. As the baton is now passed and handed over to President-designate Dr. George Olumbi of this prestigious organization, rest assured that Grenada's commitment remains unwavering, and we offer a full support in continuing the work to realize the transformative realities in which global Africa promises and brings to all. On behalf of the government and people of Grenada, and indeed the Caribbean, I extend my personal appreciation and heartfelt gratitude to you and your family, knowing fully well that your influence and legacy would remain alive in us and in generations to come. May your legacy continue to guide us as we walk into the future together. And you're welcome to visit us in Grenada, you and your family, to come and relax as you plan the next stages of your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please make way for the former President of Senegal, Excellency Macky Sall.
Excellencies, former head of states of Niger, my dear friend President Muhammadu Yusufu, Vice President of Nigeria, the Governor, dear President Oramah, President Olumbi, dear Aliko Dangote, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, dear friends. It is always a pleasure to be among the Afreximbank family. Today is a special moment, a moment of gratitude and transition. We bid farewell to Professor Benedict Oramah, and we welcome Dr. George Olumbi as he takes the helm of this great institution. For more than 30 years, Afreximbank has stood by Africa. It has supported our trade, our investments, and our dreams. It has financed major projects, opened new markets, and built bridges between our nations. Through a range of innovations, you all talk about that all the day long. The bank has shown the power of African cooperation. It has even reached beyond our shores to strengthen ties with our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. But Afreximbank is more than a bank. It is a shield in times of crisis. When COVID struck, the bank acted swiftly, helping countries to trade, to buy vaccines, and to protect their people. Je voudrais à ce point particulier insister sur le leadership du président Oramah lorsque la COVID a frappé et que nos nations isolées n'avaient pas les capacités d'acheter des vaccins au moment où toutes les grandes nations s'arrachaient la production de vaccins. Il a fallu créer une centrale d'achat à l'échelle du continent sous la conduite d'Afreximbank et du professeur Oramah. When the war in Ukraine disrupted global markets, Afreximbank once again stepped in to support African trade. Despite global challenges, the bank achieved remarkable results. These achievements carry the mark of one man, Professor Benedict Oramah. Dear brother Benedict, we salute you. Your leadership has inspired us. Your vision has strengthened Africa's confidence in itself. Your legacy will live on in the story of Afreximbank. I wish you success and happiness in all your future paths. Now to our brother, Dr. George Elambi, I will say congratulations. You know this institution very well. You carry its spirit in your heart. We trust your leadership and your dedication. May you continue this mission with strength and wisdom. As Africa advances toward a future of prosperity, Afreximbank is the mirror of an Africa that believes, an Africa that stands tall, that looks ahead, that builds its own destiny. As we honor Professor Oramah and welcome Dr. Elambi, we renew our faith in Africa's promise and in the power of unity, trade, and shared ambition. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup. That is His Excellency Macky Sall, the former president of Senegal. Now, there's a saying that goes, success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. And the AFCFTA is a big success. But when it was a baby, there was one gentleman who believed in it and used his position, power, and influence as the president of Niger in order to push through this idea. And he faced resistance, but together with Afreximbank, they made people see. And now the AFCFTA is the driving force and the hope for millions and billions of Africans. So I want you to give him a robust round of applause as I invite to the stage. We call him the AFCFTA champion. He is the former president of Niger. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Mahamadou Issoufou.
Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi de saluer le président Macky Sall. Permettez-moi de saluer également Monsieur et Madame Oramah, ainsi que Monsieur et Madame Elwambi, ainsi que toutes les personnalités présentes ici. Permettez-moi de me réjouir d'avoir l'occasion de témoigner des services rendus à Afreximbank et à l'Afrique par Bénédicte Oramah à travers son incroyable odyssée à la tête de notre banque panafricaine depuis 2015. Permettez-moi d'associer à ce témoignage son épouse, car comme disait le poète, je cite le poète, sans la femme, l'homme serait rude, grossier, solitaire, et il ignorerait la grâce qui n'est que le sourire de l'amour. La femme suspend autour de lui les fleurs de la vie, comme ces lianes des forêts qui décorent le tronc des chênes de leur guirlande parfumée. Fin de citation. On peut dire la même chose de l'homme pour sa femme. Cela étant dit, fut un jour mémorable, le 13 juillet 2015, qui vit Bénédicte Oramah désigné troisième président de notre institution panafricaine. A priori, on ne pouvait pas savoir ce que ce jour serait mémorable, car le ciel fait rarement naître ensemble l'homme qui veut et l'homme qui peut. Parce que parfois, l'homme qui peut ne veut pas et l'homme qui veut ne peut pas. On ne pouvait pas le savoir, bien qu'il y ait eu déclaré aux actionnaires, à l'issue de sa nomination, je cite, « Je ne suis peut-être pas actionnaire de votre banque, mais mes intérêts dans la banque sont pleinement alignés sur les vôtres. Aujourd'hui, on le sait. On le sait, ce jour était effectivement un jour mémorable. Au regard du bilan d'une décennie d'épopée bancaire, le total des actifs et des garanties a été multiplié par plus de 8 entre 2015 et 2025. Celui des revenus a été multiplié par 7. Le bénéfice a augmenté de manière vertigineuse par rapport à son niveau de 2015. Les fonds propres ont été multipliés par plus de 7. Les liquidités sont restées fortes. Les sources de financement sont plus diversifiées. Ces excellents résultats ont été obtenus en dépit de la crise de la Covid et du soutien insuffisant des États qui auraient pu, pour citer un exemple, exiger des investisseurs institutionnels, notamment les fonds de pension, de contribuer à la capitalisation des banques nationales et panafricaines de développement. Mesdames et messieurs, le professeur Oramah a donc tenu les promesses faites aux actionnaires. Au-delà de ces derniers, il a été, durant ces 2 mandats, au service de l'Afrique mondiale. Cette Afrique qui comprend le continent et la 6e région, c'est-à-dire l'ensemble de la diaspora, notamment les Caraïbes. En effet, au-delà de ce qu'il a appelé avec une pointe d'ironie, l'alignement de ses intérêts sur ceux des actionnaires, professeur Oramah a su aligner tous les intérêts sur ceux du continent. C'est là la marque de ce que nous appelions, dans notre jargon d'étudiants, un leader techniquement compétent et politiquement conscient. Professeur Oramah, à l'Afrique chevillée au cœur. Il s'était fixé l'objectif de contribuer à lui redonner sa grandeur. Il trouva, par un heureux hasard du calendrier, un cadre à la hauteur de ses ambitions continentales. L'agenda 2063, celui de l'Afrique que nous voulons, adopté en 2013, soit 2 ans avant sa désignation à la tête de notre banque panafricaine. L'homme fit de celle-ci un instrument pour promouvoir l'intégration économique africaine, un moyen d'enrichir l'Afrique mondiale par l'investissement et le commerce. Je peux en témoigner. Je peux en témoigner pour avoir travaillé avec lui sur le projet de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, le projet le plus avancé de l'agenda 2063. En rapport avec le secrétariat de la ZLECAf, il a su mobiliser des ressources financières pour la mise en place du fonds d'ajustement de la ZLECAf, du système de paiement panafricain, du système unique de garantie du transit, du Centre africain de recherche et d'innovation visant à stimuler le commerce intra-africain, dont le montant du financement passera à 40 milliards de dollars en 2026. L'industrialisation, notamment les chaînes de valeur régionales, avec la priorité donnée de plus en plus au financement et à la promotion des exportations à forte valeur ajoutée, sans oublier la promotion des contrats intra-africains d'ingénierie, d'approvisionnement et de construction, l'organisation de la foire commerciale intra-africaine, l'amélioration de la compétitivité des PME et le partage d'expériences et d'expertise, le développement des infrastructures de transport, des plateformes logistiques et énergétiques. Professeur Oramah a aussi joué un rôle essentiel dans la mutualisation des capacités des institutions financières panafricaines à travers des initiatives comme l'Alliance des institutions financières multilatérales africaines. Fervent militant de l'Afrique mondiale, professeur Oramah a œuvré au renforcement des relations entre l'Afrique et les Caraïbes, sous son impulsion. Des actions et initiatives phares ont été conçues et mises en œuvre, notamment des stratégies pour augmenter le volume des échanges commerciaux entre l'Afrique et les Caraïbes, des programmes de financement et d'investissement visant à soutenir les entreprises africaines et caribéennes, notamment des crédits et des garanties pour encourager les investissements, des forums et conférences pour promouvoir les opportunités d'investissement en Afrique et dans les Caraïbes, des programmes de formation et d'éducation pour améliorer les compétences nécessaires dans le commerce et l'investissement. Professeur, j'ai noté, en écoutant vos discours, combien vous tenez chaque fois que vous en avez l'occasion à rendre hommage à vos prédécesseurs. C'est là une marque de votre sagesse, de votre humilité. C'est aussi une marque de reconnaissance et d'estime, caractéristique d'un grand leadership. Vous avez prouvé qu'on peut être grand sans rabaisser autrui, en l'occurrence sans accabler ses prédécesseurs. Vous avez prouvé l'importance que vous attachez à la solidarité entre les générations. Le passage du témoin à Georges Elombi, que je félicite, nous rassure. Je sais que cette tradition sera respectée. Dans la continuité, il va certainement consolider et amplifier les actions et initiatives en vue de promouvoir l'investissement et le commerce, conditions de l'émergence et du développement du continent. Professeur Oramah, vous avez accompli une carrière remarquable. Vous avez eu un parcours transformateur. Certains disent que vous avez les vertus des héros d'Homère, notamment le courage d'Achille et l'intelligence d'Ulysse. Tout Africain doit en être fier. Votre héritage perdurera. Je fonde l'espoir que l'histoire que vous avez écrite à la traite d'Afreximbank sera connue par la jeunesse africaine. Je fonde l'espoir que chaque Africain, nous prenant pour modèle, criera « Je veux être Oramah ou rien ». Je veux être Oramah ou rien. Je veux être Oramah ou rien. Professeur, vous quittez Afreximbank après 32 ans de bons et loyaux services. Vous avez 64 ans. Âge de la décennie, de 60 à 70 ans. Et des études, notamment celles publiées par le New England Journal of Medicine, considèrent comme étant la plus productive en termes de réalisation puissante, de sagesse et d'impact. Quel que soit le plan que vous avez pour l'avenir, sachez que l'Afrique mondiale a encore besoin de votre expérience, de vos compétences, de votre sagesse. Je fonde l'espoir que vous continuerez à être à son service avec la même fermeté, la même conviction, la même constance, la même résilience, le même niveau de leadership. Je vous souhaite bon vent. Merci de votre attention.
The champion of the AFCFTA, the former president of Niger, welcome. We go from a former head of state and quickly we move on to a current head of state. Prof, I would like to introduce to the stage all the way from across the ocean what the AU called the sixth region, our brother, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. Please welcome everybody. Warm round of applause for His Excellency, Dr. Terence Mitchell Drew.
Good evening to all. Let me, of course, stand on the protocol that has been established. But allow me to recognize, of course, President Oramah and his dear wife, and also to recognize our brother, the incoming president, and his wife, to recognize former head of states, head of governments, or the institutions, leadership in the Afreximbank presently. A good evening to all. Let me say that is an esteemed pleasure for me to be here this evening, coming from the Caribbean just for a couple of days to really pay homage to a man whose legacy also has in it his meaningful connection to the Caribbean. And so as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and the incoming chairman of the Caribbean community, I bring, of course, our deep appreciation and gratitude for what President Oramah has done to connect Africa and the Caribbean. It is deep privilege. And before I continue, I see that they put the picture up. If you look at this picture, you wonder why it is here. This is one of our cabinet meeting room. And right behind, you can see a painting. That painting was gifted to me by President Oramah when he visited St. Kitts and Nevis. And I treasure it dearly. So that is my seat right there. And the painting is right behind me. And next to me is our national flag. That is how we consider president in our country. And so it is a deep privilege to stand here in Cairo, the cradle of so much of our shared civilization, to celebrate a man whose life's work has helped to redefine what global African leadership looks like. President Benedict Oramah. But I also bring greetings on behalf of my regional colleagues and CARICOM counterparts who remain steadfast in their commitment to deepening the bonds between Africa and the Caribbean. Together, we recognize that our progress is intertwined and our collaboration is essential to building a stronger, more united global Africa. So for me, this moment is personal. A farewell, yes, but also a continuation. Because what Professor Oramah built through Afreximbank is not merely an institution. It is an idea, It is the belief that Africa and her diaspora, including the Caribbean, of course, must not simply participate in the global economy, but must help to shape it. He taught many that Pan-Africanism can no longer be confined to speeches and sentiment. It must be structured, financed, and lived. I still remember vividly our first meeting in Barbados in 2022. I had only taken office as Prime Minister just a month before. In that moment, Professor Oramah spoke not as a banker when I met him in Barbados, but as a builder of bridges, of futures, and of faith in ourselves as a people. His clarity of purpose was striking, and his humility disarming. And from that simple conversation, I knew that St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean had found not just a partner, but a brother to uplift all of us. That encounter planted the seed of what has become a historic moment, when our nations in the Caribbean became part and parcel of the Afreximbank family. But I must also point out that the first memorandum of understanding that was signed by any Caribbean nation with the Afreximbank was St. Kitts and Nevis. It was a bold step, but one rooted in trust. Trust mostly in Professor Oramah's vision. Trust in Africa's promise, and trust in the enduring ties that bind our peoples. From that decision flowed an entire movement, one that has seen the relationship between Africa and the Caribbean grow from an aspiration to a living, breathing partnership. So today, Afreximbank is no longer just an African institution. It is a global African institution. Its footprint in Bridgetown, Barbados, stands as a symbol of unity. And every time we gather, whether in Barbados, Guyana, the Bahamas, Grenada, in Africa, and now here in Cairo, we are witnessing the legacy of Benedict Oramah in action. He did not just finance trade, he financed trust. Very important. And managed transformation. Through his leadership, the bank has reimagined Pan-Africanism as something practical, measurable, and I dare say, unstoppable. He made it clear that when Africa and the Caribbean work together, we are not small, we are mighty, and a force to be reckoned with. Under his tenure, we have seen investment in education, culture, agriculture, renewable energy, and creative industries, all of which directly align with my government's own sustainable island state agenda in St. Kitts and Nevis. Our geothermal project, our agricultural cooperation agreements, our education partnerships, and even our seafood processing initiative, all these have been strengthened by bridges. Afreximbank, under his leadership, have helped to build. Professor Oramah's legacy is therefore not confined to balance sheets. It is written in the lives of young people who now see possibility where there was once distance. He has changed the narrative from separation to solidarity, from loss to legacy, from silence to shared voice. And for that, we, the people of the Caribbean, are eternally grateful. And while tonight we bid him farewell in one capacity, we know his mission continues because institutions outlive individuals. But only when those individuals give their soul. Professor Oramah, you gave Afreximbank soul. You humanized finance. You gave meaning to the numbers and heart to strategy. So on behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and indeed the entire Caribbean region, I thank you. We thank you. You have left an indelible mark not only on this continent, but across the Atlantic, on the nations of the Caribbean. And now, to Dr. George Ilombi, allow me to extend my warmest congratulations, and allow me to say that what you are inheriting today is beyond the presidency. You are inheriting a promise. The promise that this institution will continue to serve as a bridge between Africa and its sixth region, the Caribbean and the global diaspora. On behalf of my brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, I express that we have every confidence in your leadership, your intellect, your integrity, and your capacity to lead. The torch has been passed on, and we trust you will carry it higher still, lighting paths across state lines, oceans, across economies, and across generations. You have our full support. And as we look forward, let us remember that the Atlantic is no longer a means to separate us. It now connects us. The Atlantic route that once carried our enslaved ancestors now serves as a bridge of limitless opportunities. Its waters carry not the memory of bondage, but the rhythm of belonging. So tonight, I want to finally say again, and also to extend salutations to Professor Oramah for his extraordinary service, and to welcome Dr. Ilombi to this new chapter. I once again reaffirm our commitment from St. Kitts and Nevis, from the Caribbean, and from the Caribbean community, and from the wider diaspora. Let us continue to keep that bridge going. For we know, as I've said before, that the distance between Africa and the Caribbean was never a divide. It was always a bridge. Let us finally finish the Atlantic bridge. And so today, we take another step together. We take another step to strengthen the relationship between the Caribbean community, Africa, and the Afreximbank. So I want to say thank you once again, and may our shared journey continue to power progress for generations to come. President Oramah, God bless you. May you continue to have a successful life. And I sat next to your wife, and I know that without your dear wife, what you accomplished would not have been possible. So she has shared that journey with you as well. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you so much. Now, your final speaker, before we hear from the man himself, is a steadfast pillar of support, embodying grace, strength, leadership, and unwavering encouragement, not to mention profound love that has helped shape the legacy of our outgoing President, Professor Benedict Oramah. So, I know it's late, and we still have a party to go to, but please, I want you to give a very loud round of applause for Prof's Rock. Ladies and gentlemen, the matron of the Afreximbank Spouse Network, Mrs. Chinelo Oramah.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on existing protocols. About 31 years ago, at the height of my youth, I chose to follow my love to Cairo, to whom I had barely been married for a year. It wasn't the kind of movement many would expect at that time, a period of African pessimism. And when one spoke of greener pastures, they meant jobs in Europe or the USA. Our pursuit of greener pastures in the deserts of Cairo wasn't green enough and had risks. Yet, it was one that would turn out to be most fulfilling and continentally impactful. Today, I stand here fulfilled, filled with a cocktail of emotions, most especially gratitude and profound humility as we mark the end of our Afreximbank chapter that began over 3 decades ago. When I reflect on the journey that has brought us to this moment, I am overwhelmed by the kindness, support, and camaraderie that have defined our experience here. This farewell is not merely a goodbye to an institution. It is a heartfelt acknowledgement of the countless individuals who have made the last decade, and indeed our 32 years in Cairo, an extraordinary chapter in our lives. Over the past decade, and indeed throughout our 32 years in Cairo, this institution and this community have become far more than a workplace. They became my family. Afreximbank has not only supported my husband's vision, but has embraced our entire family with warmth, understanding, and unwavering solidarity. I have watched with admiration as Afreximbank has grown from strength to strength. But what has struck me the most profoundly is not just the institutional achievements, remarkable as they are, but the human fabric that holds this organization together. Behind every milestone, every groundbreaking initiative, and every transformative project, there are dedicated people who believed in a vision, who sacrificed personal comfort for collective progress, and who never wavered in their commitment to Africa's prosperity. I must be honest with you, this journey has demanded sacrifices from us as a family. There were countless vacations cancelled at the last minute because of urgent missions. There were birthdays, anniversaries, and family moments that had to be postponed or cancelled completely or celebrated hurriedly between flights and sometimes in between meetings. There were times, many times, when we were not entirely happy about what we had to give up. But we understood. We understood. My daughters understood. We understood that the work being done here was bigger than any single family, any single weekend, any single celebration. We understood, I understood, that when my husband was called away, it was because somewhere on this continent, a deal needed to be closed that would create jobs, or a partnership needed to be forged that would unlock opportunities, or a crisis needed to be navigated that could impact thousands of livelihoods. And if it were not for this very bank, this same bank, Afreximbank, my husband would not be standing here today. Several years ago, he fell critically ill. He was very ill that he had to be flown abroad. It was Afreximbank that ensured that he received the best medical care available. The bank supports the concern showed by the board, the management, and staff, and the comprehensive care that was provided saved his life. I will never forget those difficult days, and I will never forget how this institution rallied around us as a family. That kind of support transcends employment. It is a family. It is love. It is humanity at its finest. I must say a very big thank you to President Edodu and President Ekra. We will never forget. And it does not stop there. If not for the bank, my children would not have attended the very best schools. They would not have had access to opportunities that allowed them to go on and build very promising future for themselves. The bank did not just employ my husband, it invested in our entire family's well-being, our growth, and our future. We often speak of Afreximbank's impact in terms of industrial parks, special economic zones, trade finance facilities, continental integration. These are monumental achievements that will define Africa's economic trajectory for generations. But beneath all those impressive numbers and projects are lives being changed. Real people, real families, whose futures have been transformed by this institution's work. The bank changed our lives profoundly and irrevocably. And for that, words of thanks seems insufficient. To every single member of Afreximbank family, from the entire executive board members, the executive management, to the support staff, from those in front offices to those working behind the scenes, I extend my deepest gratitude. You have not only supported my husband's leadership, you have supported our entire family. There have been countless times when your understanding, your flexibility, and your genuine care have made the difference between merely surviving the demands of this role and truly thriving on it. Thank you for the late nights, the shared dreams, and the collective determination to transform Africa's trade landscape. Your dedication has made every sacrifice worthwhile, and your support has been the foundation upon which my husband and your president could pursue his vision with confidence and determination. For that, I will be eternally grateful. I must also extend special gratitude to the Afreximbank Spouse Network, ASNET. Your sisterhood, your understanding, your unwavering support have been a lifeline for me throughout this journey. You understood the unique challenges we face as spouses of those dedicated to this mission, and you created a community where we could share our joys, navigate our challenges, and support one another. The strength you gave me enabled me to be the pillar my husband needed. In the moments when the demands of this role felt overwhelming, when yet another family plan had to change, you were there with understanding, encouragement, and solidarity. Thank you for walking this journey with me, for holding me up and being my family away from home. Our story with Cairo began 32 years ago when we arrived in this magnificent city with hopes and dreams, but also with uncertainties. Would we adapt? Would we be welcomed? What will I do? How long will it take me to speak Arabic? How would I communicate? How would I navigate the city without much support system? But today, I can say without hesitation that Egypt has been far more than a host country. It has been a sanctuary, a place of growth, and a true home. The Arab Republic of Egypt, its government, and its warm-hearted people have embraced us with a hospitality that is legendary, but which we have experienced firsthand in the most touching ways. And to the government of Egypt, thank you for creating an environment where Afreximbank could not just exist, but flourish. Your support for the bank's mandates, your commitment to Pan-African cooperation, and your facilitation of our work across the continent have been invaluable. The conducive atmosphere you've created, you created and provided has enabled this institution to become a beacon of hope for African trade and development. And to the people of Egypt, you have welcomed us into your neighborhoods, shared your rich culture with us, taught us your tradition, and treated us not as foreigners, but as family. The friendships we have built here, the lessons we have learned from your ancient civilization, and the warmth we have felt in your presence will remain with us forever. Cairo is not just where we lived, it is where we have loved, laughed, grown, and belonged. Thank you. I will be remiss if I did not specifically acknowledge the executive leadership of Afreximbank. You are the architecture of strategy, the drivers of innovation, and the pillars of institutional excellence. But more than that, you have been my husband's trusted partners, his sounding boards, and at times his source of strength when challenges seemed insurmountable. Your brilliance in navigating complex financial landscape, your courage in championing bold initiatives, and your unwavering dedication to the bank's mission have been nothing short of exemplary. You have not just executed a mandate, you have helped shape the future of African trade. The legacy you are building extends far beyond balance sheets and project portfolios. It is a legacy of hope, opportunity, and empowerment for millions across our continent and the global Africa. And to the management and staff at every level, your professionalism, resilience, and your commitment to excellence have set standards that will endure long after we have moved on. You have created an institutional culture that values integrity, innovation, and impact. This is perhaps the greatest legacy of all. And to all business partners, friends from across the globe, your support is monumental. All these years, I have always said that a tree will never make a forest. No matter how brilliant, no matter how endowed my husband is, he would not have succeeded. We would not have recorded the progress we are celebrating today if not for your support, if not for your partnership, if not for your love, if not for your calls, your prayers, your well wishes. We will never forget. Thank you. Thank you. As we prepare to turn this page, we do so not with sadness, but with immense pride and gratitude. The gratitude for every person who has been part of this journey, and hope for the bright future that lies ahead for Afreximbank and for Africa and for global Africa. The relationships we have built, the memories we have created, and the bonds we have forged will not end with this tenure. They are permanent threads in the tapestry of our lives, and we will carry them with us wherever the next chapter takes us. It has been very, very touching and extremely humbling to hear all the tributes, the accolades, the well wishes poured out from the hearts from all the speakers today. It is really humbling. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing us to serve. Thank you for your partnership, your friendship, and your faith. Thank you for making our time here meaningful and memorable and truly special. May God continue to bless the African Export-Import Bank. May He bless the Arab Republic of Egypt, and may He bless our beloved continent. With deepest appreciation and warmest regards from my three daughters who are here today, Adora, Barbara, and Isama. In my Igbo language, we say, Dalo, Shukran, Merci beaucoup, Asante Sana. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
The rock of Prof, the superwoman that is Mrs. Chinelo Oramah. Now, Afreximbank's vision for global Africa is to unite Africans and their diaspora into one powerful economic and cultural force. It's about connecting continents, fueling trade, and building shared prosperity. It's the rise of global Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand on the protocols that have been observed already. I was trying to find my 20-page speech, but it looks like the dog ate it this morning, so I think that you've survived my 20-page speech. However, what I'd like to say first and foremost is that I would like to thank you for your patience. It's been a long day. I thought I heard the cocks crowing, but I think it was my mind playing with me. However, we're almost getting there, and we truly thank you for, showing up and staying for this long. But it's been an amazing day, hasn't it? Poignant, but celebratory, in honor of a giant, of a man, and that's literally and figuratively. Having had the honor of working with Professor Oramah for the last 17 years, it's particularly meaningful to me that I've been chairperson of the organizing committee of all the events related to the bank's presidential transition. The committee that I've worked with has been working actively on this since July of this year. And for that reason, I would like, in front of all of you, to say my sincere thanks to all the committee and subcommittee members that I've worked with to make today's event happen, and also for the event that we're going to celebrate tomorrow. The committee has worked very closely with our third-party service providers, including our dear MC, Mark Edo, Brandcoms, and all the others that I'm unable to list right now. So please allow me to ask you to give a round of applause to them for that as well. Finally, with the deepest humility that I can muster, it is my utmost pleasure to invite the man of the moment, Professor Benedict Okechukwu Oramah, aka Dikora, to come and address us. Please rise and welcome him to the stage with a round of applause. Please rise and welcome him to the stage.
Your Excellency, the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, dear brother Drew, Your Excellencies, former President, Excellencies, former Vice President, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union, Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat, Excellencies, Ambassadors, Honorable Ministers, former Presidents of Afreximbank, members of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank and the subsidiaries of Afreximbank, the Chairperson of the Alliance of African Multilateral Financial Institutions, and other members of this AMFI, the executives of Afreximbank, incoming president of Afreximbank, distinguished my dear wife and my dear daughters, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It has been a long and reflective day for all of us. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time from your busy schedules to participate in the historic events of this weekend. I must thank all those colleagues, friends, and partners who said very kind words about me today. So thank former and current Afreximbank board and staff members, shareholders, officials of partner institutions, clients, and others who made significant contributions to the success of this conference. In October 1993, I attended the first Afreximbank annual meeting in Abuja, Nigeria, as a member of staff of Nigerian Export-Import Bank. I listened with rapt attention as the late visionary African leader, Dr. Babakar Ndiaye, the former president of African Development Bank, articulated a compelling Pan-African vision, which he and his colleagues had converted to reality on that day in the form of Afreximbank. 2 months later, in December 1993, I accompanied the pioneer president of Afreximbank and our then managing director at Nexim Bank, Mr. Christopher Dodd, to Cairo, where he was inaugurated president in a simple ceremony in a small room in the Intercontinental Hotel in Garden City, not too far from here. The inaugural address brought the aspirations espoused in Dr. Ndiaye's visionary speech to an implementable plan that strengthened the already compelling case for an Afreximbank. It was little wonder then that almost a year later, in September 1994, I had the unique privilege of joining the bank as one of its pioneer staff members. In September 2015, after 21 years of service, I had the privilege of being appointed the president of the bank. And today, after 31 years, I stand before you to deliver remarks for the last time as president of the bank. You will agree with me, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that it has been a remarkable journey. When I joined the bank, I knew that I was not joining just another financial institution. I was becoming part of a movement aimed at turning decades-old aspirations of Africans into reality. Although I wasn't the most experienced when I came on board, I took up my responsibilities with great enthusiasm, eager to learn, in full belief that fate had placed me, the bank, and the continent on this path together. Upon assuming office as president of the bank in September 2015, I outlined an agenda for my presidency. At that time, it seemed quite ambitious, even an overreach for many. However, given the significant challenges facing our continent, including the resurgence of the commodity crisis reminiscent of the 1980s, a waning hope for industrial transformation, and regression in trade and economic integration, I thought that we could not afford to be lethargic. I was convinced that after 21 years of solid operations, it was time for the bank to more robustly take on the key purposes of its establishment. I thought that the bank had become of age to begin to ask important questions. This will require being bold and courageous in crafting a comprehensive trade development vision and strategy to constructively disrupt the status quo as a prerequisite to achieving Africa's development. We need that for structural transformation to occur, incumbents must fall. But you also knew that incumbents would not fall easily. So if we chose to engage, we must have the courage to fight. We must have the determination, skills, and patience to see that fight through. Our philosophy was born out of conviction that the only viable path forward for Africa's development and economic emancipation was one that would aggressively reverse engineer the colonial strategy of divide and rule and divide and conquer that had for decades pinned Africa and people of African descent down in the dustbin of despair and desperation. Accordingly, our philosophy was that Africa's development dynamo must be powered from within, as hundreds of years of history had shown us that external interests had been mostly predatory and parasitic, unless engaged from a position of strength and purpose. That was why we made the promotion of intra-African trade and investments the arrowhead of our strategy. When we announced that strategy in 2016, many who did not understand the nature and scope of what needed fixing accused us of taking on too many things, and some predicted colossal failure. But as good strategists who spent enormous amounts of time debating ideas, a culture that was handed over to us by the pioneer president, Mr. Dodu, we always knew that our choices were comprehensive and internally consistent. We knew that we had to fight on all fronts, as intra-African trade promotion was until then only a subject of nostalgia with no action. To those who argued that we should focus on trade finance only, I hope they now have their answers as to why that would have failed. And I ask, what trade would have been financed if there were no capacity to produce the goods that will enter the trade? Who would have traded in volumes to merit trade finance if we did not address the institutional failure caused by the absence of export trading companies, which drove the rampant informal intra-African trade? World trade would have been financed if there were no harmonized standards and if there were no testing and certification infrastructure that would reduce the very high non-tariff barriers that block intra-regional trade. Who will venture into intra-African trade if there was no trade information? No trader trades in the dark. Who have committed to deliver goods across African borders when there was very limited infrastructure to carry the goods? How could trade volumes rise to warrant trade financing when the poor intra-African and high extra-African trade compete for the same US dollars? Why would any trader bother to move goods across African borders when at each of Africa's 110 borders, transit guarantees have to be posted before the goods can cross? Which African supplier will have accepted a letter of credit opened by another African bank when there were no international banks to add confirmation to letters of credit? How would intra-African trade in creative and cultural goods have occurred if there was no one promoting them? How would intra-African trade amongst Africans in Africa, the Caribbean, and the wider diaspora have occurred if there was no deliberate effort to push them? Need I explain any further why we had to fight on all fronts? Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted that because we fought on all fronts, we can point to tangible differences the bank has made. We can now point to those things that now exist, those new institutional arrangements and interventions that have now joined as formidable forces in Africa's armory in its fight towards true self-determination. Those things that we look up to today, many of which were mere hopes and aspirations 10 years ago. For instance, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement implementation is ahead of schedule, thanks, as you've heard from the Secretary General, to Afreximbank support. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which is backed by Afreximbank $3 billion clearing and settlement facility, is today operational in 20 countries and counting. After more than 60 years of political independence, we are finally on the verge of integrating the continent's 42 payment systems into a single payment rail. And finally, we have made African currencies legal tenders across African borders. The FCFT Adjustment Fund, aimed at supporting FCFTA participating states to adjust in an orderly manner to the new trading regime, is today a reality, thanks to the partnership between the FCFTA Secretariat and the Afreximbank, as well as the bank's $1 billion commitment to support the fund. We are addressing the lack of trade information by launching and implementing the Intra-African Trade Fair, which has held 4 times so far, attracting over $170 billion in trade and investment deals and 180,000 visitors. Our digital platform, the Africa Trade Gateway, uses digital technology to break down information barriers. while our Afreximbank Africa Trade Centers, which have sprung up across the continent, provide solid platforms for intra-African trade and investment information. About 700 standards for pharmaceuticals and medical equipment, agriculture, automobiles, textiles, and so on have been harmonized, enabling smoother intra-African trade. We are building testing and certification centers across Africa to ensure that there is infrastructure to implement the standards we have helped to harmonize. Working with the AFCFTA Secretariat and COMESA, we have launched the Africa Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, supported by $1 billion in guarantee limits from Afreximbank. So today, and one day, it will be possible for goods to move from Cape to Cairo with just one transit bond. With Afreximbank's support, industrial parks and special economic zones are springing up like mushrooms across Africa, creating manufactured exports where none existed. We have worked with Arise integrated industrial platforms to build out the industrial parks, helping to process goods that used to leave Africa as mere commodities. We have supported the emergence of heavy industries, such as the Dangote refinery and petrochemical plant, which are exporting not only within Africa, but internationally. Thanks to our work in the past few years, social, cultural, and economic ties with the CARICOM and the broader Africa diaspora have been ignited. Through our African Medical Center of Excellence, we have paved the way for quality healthcare to become accessible to many Africans. Getting proper healthcare will soon be a right and no longer a privilege on the continent. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when Africa was left to fend for itself, we rose to the challenge, disbursing over $10 billion in the COVID-19 containment intervention. We also put up $2 billion that enabled Africa and the Caribbean to procure the COVID-19 vaccines when nobody was there to support Africa. Sometimes I wonder what the African Union would have done if there was no Afreximbank. While doing all of this, we still kept a sharp focus on institutional strength and financial health, and grew the balance sheet and guarantees almost eightfold, from $6 billion in September 2015 to almost $44 billion in September 2025. We grew revenues and net income equally and paid out an aggregate of almost $1.4 billion to shareholders as dividends for the same period. So investing in the bank yields two types of dividends: the development dividend we all want, and the dividends that those who invest can put in their pockets. Notwithstanding the foregoing highlights, I do not need to reiterate the eloquent presentations made by my current and former colleagues and the esteemed guest speakers throughout the day. Those presentations, along with the report card I presented at the 32nd annual meetings in Abuja last June, summarize our collective progress and achievements over the last 3 decades, particularly in the past 10 years. We could not have accomplished any of these without the extraordinary support from many of you that are here today, and even those who are not here, who are from different places. Your support has been instrumental in elevating the bank to the current stature. So a key purpose of my speech this evening is therefore to say thank you to you all for giving me immense opportunities, tolerating my weaknesses, giving me the benefit of the doubt, and helping me to rise to my full potential. While recognizing that the debt of gratitude I owe is immense, please permit me to cite a few examples. My postgraduate studies at Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife, Nigeria, introduced me to a remarkable man who will have a profound impact on my life. I would like to pay special tribute to Professor Deniyi Osuntogu, who took me under his wings and instilled in me the values that have become the foundations and guiding principles of my life's journey. As we heard from President Dodu, he identified an opportunity at the Nigerian Export-Import Bank, deemed me worthy of the challenge, and introduced me to President Dodu, who was then the managing director. That single decision changed my life's trajectory. The future of a family, a community, an institution, and even a continent can often hinge on the simple acts of kindness and decisions made by those we encounter along our paths. Professor Shutogu, your choice in 1992 to introduce me to Mr. Dodu opened me to this opportunity, the fruits of which we celebrate today. So for everything you've done for me, for Afreximbank, I say thank you, Prof. Special thanks to Mr. Christopher Dodu, pioneer president of Afreximbank, who, despite having closed interviews for a position at Nexim, still gave me a chance to prove myself. He provided me with the opportunity to explore uncharted waters at the early stages of Afreximbank in Cairo, mentored and challenged me at an intense pace, for which I am particularly thankful, because those days prepared me for subsequent work in Afreximbank. I also had a unique opportunity of working under the insightful and solid banker, Mr. Jean-Louis Ekra. As Executive Vice President for Business Development and Corporate Banking, I collaborated closely with him to define the strategic direction of the bank. During the shareholder crisis that shook the bank to its very foundations, he instilled confidence in all of us and entrusted me with responsibilities that I believe prepared me for the presidency of the bank later. Thank you very much, sir, for your trust and confidence. I would like to extend our utmost gratitude to the former and current leadership of the African Union Commission for the strong partnership we developed over the past decade. The partnership and support were instrumental in the delivery of many impactful Pan-African projects and initiatives we pursued. I would like to pay special tribute to His Excellency Ambassador Muchanga, the former Commissioner for Economic Development, Trade, Industry and Mining at the African Union Commission, for his pioneering work and steadfast advocacy for the bank, within the African Union Commission. Special thanks to the current chairperson, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and his deputy, dear sister who is here with us, Her Excellency Apostle Salma Malika Haddadi, as well as the preceding chair, His Excellency Musa Faki Muhammad, and his deputy also, Her Excellency Dr. Monique Zanzabagiwa, for being strong advocates for the bank. As an intra-African trade bank, Afreximbank naturally found a partner in the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat under the indefatigable leadership of our dear brother, His Excellency Tawankele Mene. From its inception, the AFCFTA Secretariat has forged an unassailable bond with Afreximbank. Together, we formed an enduring partnership dedicated to building a resilient future for our people. Since 2019, we've collaborated to establish several institutional structures and programs that are just beginning to catalyze intra-African trade and the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Again, the success of that collaboration reflects the power of synergies between policy and development finance institutions. And thank His Excellency Tawankele Mene for his unwavering commitment to our partnership and our shared vision for Africa. Afreximbank has retained and strengthened its partnership with other regional and international organizations towards the delivery of many of its flagship programs and initiatives. We are especially grateful to the International Trade Center under the able leadership of our sister, Mrs. Pamela Cook-Hamilton, which helped create and roll out new programs such as the How to Trade under the AFCFTA, designed to build the capacity of African SMEs to trade under the Free Trade Agreement. Our policy and research collaboration with the UN Economic Commission for Africa has been robust. The collaboration was particularly strong during the COVID-19 pandemic, alongside Vera Song with the former Executive Secretary of UNECA and Strive Masiwa, AU champion for COVID-19 logistics. We provided solutions that help mitigate the health and the economic impact of the pandemic. I am very pleased that this strong partnership has continued under the leadership of our brother, Dr. Clever Gatete, with whom we are jointly championing industrialization and climate initiatives. Special thanks are also due to Her Excellency Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Secretary General of the WTO, for her continued support, especially as regards the Cotton 4 project, as well as a joint effort to convince FIFA to procure jerseys from Africa so that we can participate in the $9 billion or so procurement that FIFA makes every year. In the pursuit of advancing intra-African trade, we have relied on strategic partnerships to develop enabling programs. ZEPRI and the Commercial Secretariat have played a crucial role in designing and implementing the Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme. We are grateful to the leadership of both institutions for their bold vision, which enabled us to realize the aspirations of Africa's 4 leaders. We've also collaborated with African Central Bank governors to roll out the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. And at this juncture, I would like in particular to recognize the role played by the West African Monetary Institute in getting the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System off the ground as they worked with us to start off the pilot project in the West African Monetary Zone. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, we began taking concrete steps towards building Africa's resilience against. We have created a clear and dependent pathway to Africa's industrial transformation. We are making vital investments that are closing the industrial infrastructure gap and catalyzing intra-African and global investments into the continent. We must thank Mr. Aliko Dangote for being a strong partner and a visionary supporter of this initiative. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the successes enumerated earlier wouldn't have been possible if our clients had not considered us worthy of their businesses. We are therefore grateful to all our clients who have become central pillars of transformation in Africa. We are particularly grateful to all 500 banks with whom we have forged strong relationships over the past decade. Major corporates such as the Dangote Group, Esewudi Group, NNPC, Sonangol, and many more for thinking us worthy of their business and supporting us in other ways so that the relationship has become a win-win relationship. The successes achieved over the last decade have been supported by strong and unreserved shareholder backing. More than ever, African governments have shown a strong commitment to empowering the bank to accomplish its mandate. This has been evidenced by successful equity injections even during global economic shocks. The successful diversification of liability sources has also bolstered the bank's resilience. African resources have become one of the most important sources of finance for the bank. And we expect that in the years ahead, the share of Africa in the bank's liability would rise from the current 37% to something close to 50%, because that is where we have set our eyes on. We are grateful to African central banks, African corporates, our partner multilateral development banks, and others for being important supporters and partners of this initiative. We also like to express our gratitude to our traditional funding partners, including international commercial banks, such as Standard Chartered Bank, HSBC, SMBC, as well as development finance institutions, such as AFD, China Development Bank, European Investment Bank, KfW, along with several export credit agencies, such as those of Canada, China, India, Finland, Spain, Sweden, Russia, Germany, Japan, Korea, Spain, and so on. These partners have been the backbone of our efforts for the past 31 years. Thanks to your contributions, we are able to attract and disburse over $155 billion over the last decade to support the continent's development. Our clients, public and private sector corporates, as well as financial institutions, have also played a crucial role in our Afreximbank's progress, which we celebrate today. We are grateful for the trust you continue to repose on us. I must also pay special tribute to the African Development Bank under the leadership of Dr. Sidi Ota and the former president and our dear brother, Dr. Adeshino, for their unflinching support for the bank during the last decade. The lines of credit, co-financing, and other technical support provided enabled us to deliver on vital trade-related projects across the continent. Thanks also to our Alliance of African Multilateral Financial Institution Partners, including AFC, Africa RE, ATD, Shelter Afrique, ZEPRI, African Solidarity Fund, FEDA, Trade and Development Bank, EADB, with whom we have jointly delivered on major development programs. I have now forged a bond of partnership to jointly confront our common challenges and pursue common opportunities. As we reflect on the bank's achievements and its lasting impact on the African people, we must recognize the individuals who made the critical decisions and provided the strategic guidance that have shaped the bank's operations over the last 3 decades. I extend my special appreciation to the dedicated current and former members of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank for their commitment and sacrifices in supporting the bank's mission. I must also pay special tribute to the Board of Afreximbank subsidiaries and special initiatives, as well as members of the advisory councils of the Inter-African Trade Fair and the Creative Africa Nexus, for the insights that have enabled us drive the agenda of these entities. I thank you for responding positively to our invitation to serve and contribute your knowledge and experience towards the development and growth of these impactful initiatives. And most in particular, thank His Excellency, former President of Nigeria, Baba Olusegun Obasanjo, for being the engine that drove the success of our inter-African trade initiative, and also being a strong advocate of the bank, not only within the continent, but internationally. Notwithstanding all of this, is essential to recognize that even the most skilled farmer requires the right tools to yield a bumper harvest. In our case, the board, executive management, and I couldn't have done it all by ourselves. Our devoted colleagues, our staff, have been the driving force behind the progress we've made over the past years. Even when faced with the challenges posed by the worst pandemic of the century, they demonstrated resilience and commitment, working tirelessly to help African economies recover and support the implementation of essential trade-enabling projects across the continent. As I made my inaugural speech 10 years ago, I called them co-mandated lead arrangers. Today, I'm pleased to announce that the co-mandated lead arrangers have successfully closed the deal, as we are here joyfully witnessing the deal closing ceremony. Special thanks to our hosts, the people and government of Egypt, under the leadership of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, for their steadfast support for the bank during my tenure. I must say that President Sisi's support for the bank has been exemplary, which has enabled us to receive support all across the board in Egypt, and also using Egypt's influence to support the work of the bank across Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there can never be an exhaustive list of persons and institutions that made an impact on the bank and me personally over the past 10 years. Whether they are event partners or consultants such as BrandComs, who assisted in the design and rollout of vital programs or strategies, or in fine-tuning aspects of our operations, I am eternally grateful to you all. You are part of the success story that many spoke about today. And to my late parents, Lazarus and Francisca, I thank them for making me the African I am. I must also thank my immediate family, my dear wife Chinelo, and my 3 beautiful and resourceful daughters for their patience and resilience over the last 31 years. They have been very understanding, and I hope they will also prove understanding as I become a homeboy. I also thank my brothers and sisters. 2 of them are here, 1 is not here. Thank them especially because they were part of my upbringing. They were part of preparing me. I also thank in-laws and our larger extended family for their unwavering support. They're always there when I needed them. My friends from across the continent and the world also supported me, sometimes at personal cost to themselves. We are truly indebted to you all. As we look to the future, we must remind ourselves that despite the progress we celebrate today, the challenges of development remain significant. These challenges will intensify for both Africa and the bank as we continue to implement policies, programs, and initiatives that will disrupt embedded inequities. Programs and initiatives that will help the country reduce its economic dependence on others. I'm optimistic about the future of the bank and its impact on Africa and people of African descent, because I have confidence in the new leadership elected by our shareholders to take the bank forward, in the person of my dear brother and colleague, Dr. George Elombi. When he takes the oath of office tomorrow, he will have spent nearly 30 years in the bank, actively participating in a collective effort of using the bank as an important engine for Africa's economic transformation. He is an old hand who knows where the bodies are buried. He knows the risks. He knows how to confront them. He stood with all of us as we confronted threats and navigated them. So he comes well prepared. He steps into the role after years of defending the interests of the bank and Africa. I have no doubt that with him at the helm and with a solid team, he will inherit the achievements in the next 10 years will make those of the past 10 years look so ordinary. I look forward to a vibrant and memorable event tomorrow. Thank you all once again for your time. And please enjoy the concert this evening. And for my colleagues I will be leaving behind, I remind you to always remember your anthem. We will build for Africa's prosperity. We build for dinner and posterity. Always remember that is the calling. If you forget, play the anthem. Thank you very much.
The DK Aura, the strong man of the people, Professor Benedict Oramah. Sir, I'm going to ask you to take your flowers. You stand tall as the emperor, the conqueror, the champion, the lion.
The conqueror, the champion, the lion is here. Reigning by master.
Okay.
Aliko Gang Dangote, please join us on the stage. Former heads of states, presidents, former VPs, presidents of Afreximbank, our incoming president, please, we can't do without you. Please join us on the stage. Dancing is optional. And spouses, please join us, the spouses of the presidents and past presidents of Afreximbank, Professor Mufti, the deputy chairperson of the African Union, our board members, our executives and our shareholders and our subsidiary heads, representatives from the Caribbean, the governors of the states, join us, ministers, former ministers.
You're watching Arise, the world's standout news channel.